Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Will,
I'm Sam.
and we are excited to be continuing today in the Crossroads of Twilight. Maybe something will happen. Sam's got us for the summary of this episode, starting in chapter 4.
All right, The Tale of a Doll. So this is either a hard skip or a read, depending on your feelings on it. At last, we check in with Banner General Farik Kharid, and I have no idea how to pronounce that, so I'm going to say Kharid. Was really, I at least, Will, I don't know about you, I was really wondering what he was up to. Also, who is he, you might ask? Because why would you remember? You're not alone. You know what I think we need is more perspective characters, really.
Yes, that would really help unmuddy the waters.
Yeah, that would, move things along, advance the plot. So this particular gentleman is a Death Watch guard, actually the highest ranking Death Watch guard on this side of the Aerith Ocean. He did have an appearance in the Path of Daggers, chapter 23, and that was it.
Wow.
So his servant is named Ajimbura, who is apparently Gollum. Or Gollum's cousin. He's from the Kane Sada Hill tribes, half civilized, half tamed, drinks from a skull.
Sure.
Kharid tells him to take the rat he's killed outside to skin and eat it. Which, okay, so I was already kind of groaning, obviously, when we started this chapter off with a character we've not remembered in any way.
Right.
But I kind of like Ajimbura. That's we need more Ajimbura in the show.
Right. I was like, hey, can we get more of this guy and a little less of...
This is less of the Banner General, who's not so interesting.
Right.
But the guy with the rat, I'm gonna make him a perspective character.
Yeah.
So Kharid has been raised to Banner General for winning some battles against Ashaman, something almost no one had done to this point. People think maybe he knows something about fighting Aes Sedai, so they're asking him for his perspective on that. But his main concern, of course, for now, is Tuon's disappearance. He won't consider suicide, even though the shame of her presumed kidnapping cuts him deeply. Of course, no one is actually talking about her disappearance, even though all of Shan-Chan knows. So he has to find and protect her, but he doesn't really know how. He doesn't know where she is. And if she's dead, his job, of course, will be to murder whoever killed her.
I think somewhere in here it mentions, too, that sometimes she just disappears on her own.
This is not the first time this has happened. And several times in this chapter, he says, we're going to go try to find her. We may not because she doesn't want to be found, but it's my job, so we're going to go try.
Right. It's funny that they assume it's a kidnapping anyway.
Right. Yeah, it's like, well, no one mentioned anything. We can't safely just assume that she's doing this on her own, so we're gonna just try to find her if we can. So this is the game we're playing. So in walks our buddy, the seeker for truth, Al-Murat Moore. So we do remember this fellow at least a little bit from Egyanin, whatever you call her. It's kind of nice because, if you remember with Egyanin, he kind of scared the fool out of her a little bit. She's like, oh my gosh, a seeker for truth, quaking in my boots, literally. Not the case with old Farik Kharid. He doesn't really seem to care a whole lot about the seeker for truth, which is kind of nice. I always kind of like that. Kind of makes me like Kharid a little bit more. Sends Ajimbura away when the Seeker shows his Raven and Tower plaque. Moore looks at what Kharid is studying on the table and says, "You're involved in Lord Yulan's plans? Wouldn't think the Death Watch Guard would be." Kharid says, "Loyalty is more precious than life," followed by knowing when to keep silent. The Seeker says Kharid must be proud of his sons, 2 in the Death Watch Guard and a 3rd among the honored dead. Kharid,
I feel like it's relevant to interrupt here.
Please
and
do.
Just say that I may have mentioned this back when he was introduced in the Path of Daggers, but Furik is the Slovak word for wheelbarrow.
Right. That's very true.
It's spelled a little different.
But it's, I'm with you.
But it's pretty much Furik. So
right. Just a Y instead of the I. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good observation.
So there you go.
Very good. Yeah. Thank you. Kharid responds with, what's your name? Which is something else you're not supposed to ask a seeker. dude really has zero cares to give, and I kind of like that. I guess it's in part because Tuan is missing and he just doesn't have any patience for the Seeker's chit-chat. Apparently the last name Moore means that the Seeker had ancestors who followed Archer Hawkwing. Kareed says, call me Farik. Call me Wheelbarrow. What do you want? Moore says, listen to a story and tell me what you think.
Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy.
Call me Farik.
But call me Wheelbarrow.
Oh, man. Yes. So a girl with a Shandar accent extorts gold from merchants in Ibudar. Someone mentioned Daughter of the Nine Moons. The description of the girl is precise, and no one heard this rumor before the night Tylan's murder was discovered. And of course, no one should know the name Daughter of the Nine Moons. That's kind of an understood statement here, because Tuan is still under the veil. It's not really explicitly mentioned here, but I feel like it's worth bringing up as context because we should know that. Kareed asks how the Terrazin Palace is handling stuff. They're pretending like everything's fine, but in truth, Suroth is not taking it well, has people beaten, ordered the death of a Seeker every day until Tuan is found, but then realized she might run out of Seekers before she runs out of days. Also, some have quietly made funeral arrangements. Apparently, this is the wrong thing to say to Kareed. She comes around the table, sits at the edge, staring at Moore, resisting the urge to strangle him. It's just funny, like, you don't expect certain things to, like, certain statements to make someone want to kill someone else, but those were the magic words to make Farik decide he wants to strangle this guy. He says, why come to me if you think someone in the Death Watch guards could be implicated? Moore asks for something to drink, pours one for Kareed, two in the skull cup. Kind of tells Kareed his life story, or Kareed's life story. He saved Tuan from assassins repeatedly, requested to be assigned to guard her life. She even gave him a doll, which he kept, and realized that he wasn't supposed to. He's not supposed to have any sort of sentimentality like that. Kareed keeps his face smooth, says, my honor is loyalty to the crown. So why'd you come to me? Moore says, 2 Damani were taken from the Terrazin Palace the night Tylan was murdered. Both were former Aes Sedai. Coincidence? So, we think you can see where this is going. Kareed is on the case and on Matt's trail, kind of. Moore goes on. Others left that night too. Matt, Tom, some soldiers, all seen with Aes Sedai before the Shan-Chan took the city. Maybe Tylan was murdered because she knew too much. If the White Tower had plans in Ibudar, they might send a man like Tom Merlin to carry them out. If Merlin is even his name. Pretty great conspiracy theory stuff if it wasn't slowing down our plot. Anyway.
Always fun to just add, if that's really your name.
Right, when you meet someone like, hello, Eric. If that's really your name. Yes, I'm going to use that like that.
Maybe it's Blaric.
Yeah, indeed. Kareed says, you haven't taken this to the Seekers, have you? There are complications. Eginan left that night too with 3 Damani. 2 of the Soldams have connections to Suroth. Aes Sedai plotting with Suroth, the thought plickens. So what do you want to do about it, Al-Marat? We're trying to find them. We haven't had any luck yet. So whatever you do, know that 2 or 3 soldiers always accompany this girl in black armor. So Kareed asks Ajimbura if he knows this rumor. Ajimbura would not soil his tongue with such filth. Okay, well then go find Captain Musinji and give him this note. Captain Musinji being the captain in the Death Watch guards. Kareed heads out of town, meets up with 100 Death Watch guards, 20 Ogier gardeners, and supplies for 2 weeks. Also Suldam with 6 Damani. Melatine, who's the Der Suldam, says the excuse they used to get them out of the city was exercise. Hartha, the head gardener for the Ogier, says, I see no cause for laughter. We have no target. We are trying to catch the wind in a net. Kareed says we must begin spreading our nets without delay and spread them finely. Okay, so stop me if we've talked about this already. Have we talked about the Shan-Chan Ogier gardeners not having the longing? Has that come up?
I don't think so.
So I just Googled it because I knew that this had come up. Someone had talked about it because, they're way away from Shan-Chan. Like, this has got to be a thing. So Robert Jordan quote here, quote, there are many more steading in Shan-Chan than there are in the part of the world where the story is taking place, and that is why the Shan-Chan Ogier don't suffer from the longing. Because there are so many more steading, they were able to find them more easily, even during the breaking, and therefore never had the very extended separation that Ogier on this side of the Aerith Ocean had, though they seldom were able to settle in one for very long until the breaking ended. So Jordan has an answer. I don't know how satisfied I am with that answer, but it's fair. I do love the idea that there are these, kind of tough Ogier gardeners who are, Shan Chan trained, and you look up a picture of this guy, and he just looks like a big old orc. The artist depiction. So I'm here for it. I don't mind that the Shan Chan Ogier don't have the longing, but it is something that I thought was interesting, worth at least bringing up. Apparently, other people have brought it up too, since there's an official Robert Jordan quote about it.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so on to Chapter 5, The Forging of a Hammer, and that's the last we hear from Thurik Kharid for, I don't know if we ever hear from him again. I didn't look, but if we don't, it's okay. I just hope we hear from Ajahn Bura again.
Yes.
Chapter 5, The Forging of a Hammer, Skem. So, I found it funny that Perrin's on the cover of Winter's Heart, but only has 4 perspective chapters in that book. Matt is on the cover of Crossroads to Twilight, has 5 perspective chapters in this book, to Perrin's 7. Actually, the middle of this book is all ladies, 5 Elaines in a row, and then 5 Egwenes. Anyway, Perrin dreams of Myrddraal and something worse. When he wakes up, he searches for wolves in his mind, finally finds some at a distance. This pack consists of Leaf Hunter, Tall Bear, Whitetail, Feather, and Thundermist. I always love the wolf names. He asks them what could be worse than the Neverborn. They don't want to say, but finally Leaf Hunter says, the last hunt is coming, which is their name for the last battle. Perrin says, sorry if I offended, but they are not interested in chatting anymore, which is interesting. He gets dressed, wakes up, gets dressed, marks another knot in a cord, 22 knots for 22 days since Fael was kidnapped. It's like he's on a season of Alone, and he's, marking down the days. Have you seen that show?
No, but I can. Oh, man. I could probably figure out what the premise is from the name.
You can. It's so good. There's a few seasons on Netflix. Not at all the kind of thing I would have liked, but highly recommend it.
Interesting.
Anyway, yeah. So Perrin never thought he would take this long to find Fael, but the Shaido have been hard to locate. Every time a trace is found, Grady and Niald make gateways. Perrin leads his army after them. They have turned south toward warmer lands in Altara, but closer to the Shan Chan and Ibudar too. So Perrin is careful, impatient, but also careful because he has to be. Aram says, they want to see you. I told them to let you sleep. Perrin says, get my horse ready, and goes out to meet Sebin Balwer and Salande Darren-Gil. Plenty of descriptions of people's feelings from their smells in this book, of course. Wouldn't be a Perrin perspective otherwise. Balwer says, Salande has news you need to hear. Salance? I don't know, whatever. Says, I have 3 things. Massima sent a rider toward Medicia yesterday. Second, casks of salt fish and salt beef with Altaran markings have been seen among Massima's people too. We could figure out where they came from if you give us the go-ahead. Perrin says, you know where they came from, and so do I. Raiding parties from the Prophet. We've got to stop Massima, but he has 10 or 12,000 men with him, and that could be an issue. So let's just let sleeping dogs lie. The third thing is that Masuri and Anura have been seen visiting Massima in disguise. Perrin asks Salanda to see if they could eavesdrop on one of those conversations. It's kind of a fair bit of build-up there for that, and I guess it was worth it. I mean, I don't really care that Anura was visiting, but I'm sorry. I'm just having trouble. Perrin says, good job, though, and Salanda smells like pride. Salanda says, grace favor you, when she really wanted to say she hopes he finds water and shade. Balwer, after she leaves, Balwer says, she will do very well. Can we talk? Perrin asks Aram to walk behind a little while, which he does not like. Aram's scent grew spiky again and quivery, a thin, sour smell. You know that one, of all the smell descriptions. That one kind of rings true. You can kind of feel it.
Right.
So anyway, Balwer tells Perrin that, some stuff. He's trying to manipulate Perrin into thinking Massima is working with the Whitecoats. Perrin says, stop it. Say what you mean plainly, and I'll make the decision. Which this makes Balwer pleased somehow. I guess because he didn't expect Perrin to pick up on it or something. He says, my previous employer was all poison needles. He enjoys working for Perrin. He would like to not leave his employ. Very formal acting. Perrin thinks, man.
I think the thing we're supposed to take away is that Balwer respects Perrin's forthrightness and honesty. That
that's true. Yeah,
that he's used to having to manipulate to get his way, and to get anything done. Whereas Perrin, he's harder to manipulate, partially because of his wolf sense, partially because he is just a what you see is what you get kind of guy.
And he's smarter than he gives himself credit for, too.
Right. And like, I mean that in the good way. Like, he's deliberate. He's not a scheming kind of guy. He's consistent.
He's single-minded at this point.
Whereas, Balwer is used to working with
Paige and
white cloaks, that have, all of them have their own ulterior motives and their own schemes and plans within plans within plans. And so, it's always been manipulation with him. And he probably never really had any respect for any of them while he was doing it. And, now he's an outcast. And so, he's doubly upset. And so probably just like, hey, I might actually have thrown my lot in with like a genuinely good person for the first time. And
that all checks out. Very well said, Will. I didn't get to pick up on any of that. Well said. So Perrin walks through the Two Rivers part of the camp. One dude spits as he walks by. Another guy punches that guy in the arm, but half-heartedly. No reason given at this point, but we're about to find out if it wasn't already apparent. Everyone starts to pack up to go through another gateway after the Shido. So, on to Chapter 6, Scent of a Dream. It's another Perrin chapter, but I'm going to call this maybe a skimp. Maybe your skimp. I like that. Skip/skim. Perrin rides out on Stepper into the woods. Side note, galloping a horse in the woods and snow seems like a bad idea. I'm not a horse expert, and maybe Perrin is, but I don't know. Maybe okay for Ta'Veren, I guess. Stepper snorts in fear and stops dead in his tracks. Aram's horse does too, and then Perrin smells burnt sulfur. Same thing he smelled in his dream. Aram draws his sword, but Perrin tells him to put it away. It's not needed. Perrin knows what it is, dark hounds. Doesn't take him long to find paw prints in stone. Tells Aram to go tell everybody what's up. Perrin follows their trail. It's about an hour old. Turns out the dark hound pack has circled their camp. They're looking for someone, but not him. As he gets back to where he started, he smells people and horses, Mayanners, Aram, wise ones. He wants to avoid Barrelane, but one of the wise ones sees him. Kind of avoided Barrelane, and since that night when she kept him in her tent when he was passed out, she says you should take a bath. And also, here's a chicken in a basket. Perrin realizes he's famished, wolfs down the chicken and also some bread. She says we should pretend to flirt so no one thinks we're talking about anything important. Number one, what the heck? Why would that matter?
I tried that, and I get brought up to the HR office.
Right. Not usually a strategy I would think to employ. Barrelane says there's a letter in the basket too. Perrin reads it. It's a letter stolen from Massima that is from Suroth. It says the bearer is under my personal protection. Perrin tells Barrelane what Solanda told him, that Honora was seen visiting Massima's tent. She's shocked, but says Aes Sedai have their reasons. He rides off, but she follows him and says, I'll figure out what she's up to. She tries to tell a joke about the dark hounds that Aram has told them about until Perrin shows them the paw print in stone. On to Chapter 7, Blacksmith's Puzzle. This is also probably a skip. I don't know. This is one of our last few Perrin chapters, so maybe a skim/read. And everyone kind of freaks out when they see the massive paw print in stone. Fair. Perrin tells them to settle down, though. The dark hounds are long gone. Clearly weren't interested in them. Everybody's got to see it, though. These puppies are the stuff of kids' nightmares, it seems. These chapters would be more compelling if Perrin and his friends encountered the monsters instead of standing clustered around a demonic fossil. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like there's the threat of them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, except everyone keeps saying that they're not coming back. You don't have to worry about them. Apparently, Masuri has studied dark hounds in the past. Brown eyes are weirdos. Some study squirrels, others dark hounds. Everybody's got to have a hobby. Channels into the fossil to examine it. Says the signature of this pack doesn't match any of the ones she's seen before. No one knows how many packs there are, but there are definitely more than 7, and it's all but unheard of to encounter them away from the blight. They have a single-minded purpose, a specific prey they're chasing, and our group just isn't it. They seem desperate to find whoever or whatever it is, like their prey has eluded them for longer than expected. So one way or another, y'all can stop shaking in your boots. They aren't coming back. But the discussion is interrupted by the arrival of Massima and the boys. Yep, he still smells insane. I'm picturing the smell of fermented peaches or Cocoa Puffs. I don't know. His eyes look crazy too. That one's easy enough to imagine. The light of madness in the eyes. So Perrin right off the bat gets mad when Massima makes a crack about him and Barrelane. Perrin tells him about the Dark Hounds, kind of get him back on topic, which is really, they sort of gloss over that. But then Massima says he's found a town where they can get, probably because he's been looting the place. Perrin says none of that matters until we can find Fail, then we can fill our bellies. Might be fighting words, but the discussion is interrupted again by riders in the distance. So Arganda, Alejandro's captain of the guards, gallops toward them with Perrin hot on his heels, because of course Alejandra is one of the ladies who was captured by the Shido. Oh, I guess I never addressed the name of the chapter. A blacksmith's puzzle is a thing made of metal, made by apprentices usually. It's a puzzle to be taken apart. I'm just picturing something you'd find at Cracker Barrel. Perrin knew an old dude who could take one apart without being able to see it by touch alone. Perrin never could, though. He had to see it, see the problem, and solve it. Can't see the whole problem with saving Fael yet. So, Chapter 8, Whirlpools of Color. Similar name to Fan of Colors.
Yes.
A couple of color-themed chapters here. Call this one a skim or a read, even because some things do happen in it. Kind of a shift of locale for our friends with Perrin's group. The riders in the distance are Elias, who really needs a bath and a shave, and an Aiel maiden named Elienda. Perrin demands to know if they found Fael. Elias says, well, we did find the Shido we were following. They've taken over a town 40 miles from here, but there are more than we thought gathered, 9 or 10 septs. Could be as many people there as in Mayen or Ibudar, as many as, say, 10,000. So that causes Perrin's stomach to knot up. No way his army could take on 10,000 Shido, even with the Ashaman, Aes Sedai, and Wise Ones all channeling. He can't count Massima's men either, because the Shido would, quote, shred Massima's murderous rabble like a cat slaughtering a nest of mice.
But what I am picturing when they say shred is like really awesome guitar playing. just
having a good jam session, trying to play some Rush. Actually, might not be the worst thing in the world. Could we just arrange to have the Shido destroy Massima's? That could be okay. Perrin clamped down on the despair he's feeling. No room for anything but anger if he's going to rescue his wife. And Aram says, we can take him. Can't be worse than the hordes of Trollocs we slaughtered in the Two Rivers. But, of course, that's insanity. Elias shuts that down real quick and says, last I heard, you caught the Trollocs in a vice. Do you have a vice I don't know about here? Arganda asks if they can pay off the Shido, and Barrelane offers her jewels. And everyone seems to be weirdly thinking this is a good idea. And Nora says, maybe that's the best approach, and maybe, of course, Aes Sedai are the best negotiators. But Perrin's like, no, there will be no ransom, and says, Elias, show me the Shido camp. Let's go look at it. So at the traveling ground, Elias sees the Darkhold, the Darkhound paw fossil. Says that Darkhounds were once wolves, and that's why the wolves Perrin talked to didn't want to talk about them. If the Darkhounds can capture a wolf and eat its soul, freaking Shao Kahn style, they can make more Darkhounds. Plus, it takes 100 wolves to kill one. So Perrin asks if they can eat a man's soul, like a man who has a kinship with wolves. Elias hasn't had the pleasure of finding that tidbit out. Let's go ahead and guess yes, and try to avoid that situation.
I like my soul with Chick-fil-A sauce.
Elias says not to worry about it. They're not after you anyway. But they'll probably report we were here, so, let's save your wife and go home. So a whole entourage wants to go spy on the Shido. Elias makes Arganda and his Gildanan soldiers take off their mirrored armor, which seems like a good idea. Jur Grady shows up, yawning. Perrin asks if he's okay to open a gateway. Grady says, there's no better off, and he's better at it anyway. So Elias gives him instructions and says, be careful to get it right, or we'll be seen for sure. Still not real sure how this whole concept works, in terms of finding the right spot to open a gateway, especially when you're trying to be super precise, but whatever.
I expect it's a lot like, a dog finding the right place to poop in the yard. Right. Just the Ashaman walks around in circles, and
I always heard that the dogs poop on Latlawn, Polar, or maybe it was ley lines. I don't know. Anyway.
Sure.
North and south, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
It's sounding really true now that I'm saying that out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I dumped out some grease tonight, and my dog, I like just about tackled him because he was like eating greasy dirt. Like, what kind of creature? I've been watching him all night. He seems fine. It's not the first time it's happened, but just need to dump the grease.
I feel like you're going to get some emails about.
I know. I will.
Several things.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. I have no problem with that. He's fine. He's okay. But I will dump my grease on the other side of the fence from now on. So Grady does get it right. Gateway opens in a clearing at the foot of a tree-covered ridge, and the Shido camp is on the other side. So at the top of the ridge, they meet up with two veiled Aiel. Elias recognizes them. Oops, not the kind of mistake he normally makes, and they're surprised. It's Tuanda and Sulin. Sulin says the Shido made people leave the city last night, at least the ones they didn't make guy shine. Marlene says, too many. Perrin says, if you think I'm going to walk away just because there are more Shido, but she interrupts him. No, too many wise ones. Too many to be from just 10 seps. I think it's all the Shido wise ones who can channel. Perhaps 400, fewer than 500. Anura makes a sound like a sob. Half the White Tower from one clan? Oh, light. So that is an issue, 400 channelers. Daniel says, we could sneak in like you did to the White Cloaks that one time. Sulin snorts. We could sneak in, maybe, get a little ways in. You would be trussed like a goat for the spit before you pass the first tents. Perrin nods, but realizes the despair he was feeling is gone. He can at least see the whole blacksmith puzzle now. Mm-hmm. Nat Torfin said any puzzle could be solved once you found out where to push and where to pull. Perrin points out an aqueduct, I think, where Sulin says it runs for 5 miles to a lake. And then suddenly colors erupt in Perrin's head and he sees Rand and Nynaeve seated facing each other. With an effort, he fights down the image and returns to the world, just in time to hear Grady say, it's madness. No one can handle that much Saidin from that far off. Marlene says the same about Saidar. Anura wonders if it's the Forsaken or the Dark One himself. Perrin says, no. It's Rand. It's his business. He'll take care of it. Everyone's just kind of staring at him like, did you not just hear what we said? But Perrin is having none of it. Tells Sulin he needs prisoners. Anura says, but we got to go find out what's going on over there. Perrin meets her gaze and says, I told you what it is. Our work is in front of us. Sulin says, all right, you're not going to learn anything from them. If we get prisoners, Perrin says, I will learn what I can. Saving Fael matters more than anything else in the world, including whatever the heck is going on over there. Oh, yeah, that's Rand. Doesn't matter. Just move along. And that takes us to the very end of Chapter 8 and the end of our section here.
Fun times. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you would like to tell Sam why he shouldn't just dump grease in his backyard.
Grease in my backyard for my dog to eat. I swear, I was not trying to feed my dog grease.
Then you can email us at stuff@tsmpodcast.com or go to tsmpodcast.com and fill out our contact form. Also, if you want to support what we do here, including feeding grease to dogs,
right,
you can go to the donate button on our page and help us out. So thanks again for listening, and until next time, Tai'Shar Manetheren.